how to recruit, hire, and onboard new salespeople. The third point that I just made there is probably the most important because after we hire good people, if we fail to onboard them properly, you'll get a poor performer, and that's not what you're looking for. Based on my years of experience in interviewing salespeople, I found that virtually all unemployed salespeople claim they made $100,000 in the previous year. They also have excuses for all of their failures. Territory was bad. My boss was bad. Comp plan was bad. Competition was too strong. You name it, I've heard all the excuses, but at the end of the day, these people aren't the people you want to bring on board. They are very good interviewers because they've been fired so often. They get to practice their interviewing and resume writing skills. I think you need to hire salespeople to grow your business, to get a better marketing footprint, to increase profit, and to become a business. And I say that because many solopreneurs are the men and women who do the selling and ultimately the managing of their business. That first salesperson could be the most important decision you make in terms of the growth of your business, and done incorrectly, you'll have challenges facing you. Now, I've done this for 43 years, and I had an aha moment about 10 years ago when I realized that the poor salespeople that frequently respond to job postings are very good at interviewing. And I said that ago, but it's very serious for us to consider. You see, they've been fired so often. They're really good at interviewing, and that's not necessarily the skill you want. I'm sure you want people who are good at doing the job, not good at getting the job. The laws complicate our process, and they make it harder today than ever before to hire salespeople, or any employee for that matter. Most of the problem lies in the fact that good salespeople may not be looking when you're looking to recruit, just as a word of wisdom. The good salespeople more often than not have to be recruited directly out of the situations they're in. So it pays benefits to you to constantly be on the lookout for good salespeople. When you're talking to customers, ask them, who do they know that they view or they look upon as a good sales professional, and reach out to that man or woman, grow a background or a funnel or a pipeline of good salespeople, recognizing that they won't come to you right away. But at some point in the future, their current employer may do something that will prompt them to look for a new job. And that's when I want your company to be top of mind with those people at that point in time. Now, the secret sauce of hiring a strong salesperson is to make sure that the behavior that they manifest, the beliefs that they manifest, are in alignment with your market, with your culture, and with your company. Now, the HR Charlie Group did some research years ago, and they found that there are 5 different selling styles that complement 5 different buying styles. When there's a complement or an alignment, the probability of success is very high. Conversely, when there's a conflict between the natural selling style and the buying style, probability drops dramatically. So we want to hire people who fit the behavior of your buyers. The 5 styles are commodity selling based on price, stimulus, response based on features, retail, passive waiting for customers to place an order, consultative solving problems by applying your product or service to the situation that the customer, and last but certainly not least, enterprise, where 4 or 5 or 6, a committee of people have to be consulted to produce a transaction. Any one of the people on that committee could say, heck no, and kibosh the whole deal. Now I want you to avoid these mistakes. Don't try to hire a friend. Don't try to hire a mini-me, that guy or gal that reminds you of you back in the old days. Don't rush through this process, and don't trust your gut. Always have additional executives interview candidates before you pull the trigger and give them an offer letter. Most importantly, take the transition plan that's in your toolkit, modify it for your business to be specific, and have that man or woman review that transition plan before you extend the job. Offer more on that in part 2 of this presentation. Now, what we're trying to do is to avoid this situation. You interview a great person, well-groomed, articulate, timely, good resume, everything's perfect. You extend the job offer, he or she shows up, but then they perform like this guy. Now, I'm not exaggerating. This has happened many times, and the entrepreneur then keeps this poor performer for 6 months to a year, finally gets tired of the performance, lower lack thereof, and terminates that employee only to start that process all over again. Let's break that bad habit, because each time you do that, according to the Wall Street Journal, you're making the $600,000 mistake. The key, as I said a moment ago, is alignment. It has to be cultural alignment, process alignment, skills, and background. The more aligned the candidate is with your current situation and your customers and your opportunities, the the higher the probability that you'll hire a superstar and not a bum. For instance, if all you do is interview candidates or not, your chances of success are about 16%. No one would make a bet where there's a 16% chance of success, especially a $600,000 bet. If you interview and you reference check, probability goes up to 29%. If you do that and personality test and ability test and apply simulation selection, then the probability goes up to 71%. In the second part of this presentation, I'm going to walk you through my sales simulation interviewing process, wherein you will show an applicant that he or she has to perform before you offer them a letter. What's at stake is $600,000. Now that $600,000 is a combination of hard dollars and soft dollars. Even worse, it's frustrating to the entrepreneur to hire someone only to have them fail. Your morale might be impacted, and your team's morale, so let's make sure that we hire the right person, the right time, and move forward properly. Last, but certainly not least, if you hire badly, the recruiting fees don't go away. So you could spend $20,000, $30,000 to get someone on board only to find out that it was a mistake. Now, the way I approach this is I encourage you to run a skills and a personality test on your top performers. Someone in your company is a top performer. Let's benchmark their personality and their skills and use that test as a benchmark for all future candidates. So if you know their personality and their behavior is producing the results you want, and a candidate comes in and they match that or even exceed that, then your chances of success go up dramatically. You'll find that in some states, these tests may be illegal if you use them. Before you hire people, please consult your HR department or your law firm before you follow through on that, because I'm clearly not a lawyer. After you bring them through the interview posting and you get a resume, it's time for you to do a phone screen during the phone screen. If your laws allow, I'd like you to verify income. If not, then we have to ask a question after you've explained the job in detail. The question that I ask again in those states where it's against the law to request a W-2, the question that I ask is, based on your understanding of this position, what would you feel your income should be, or what are your income expectations? Based on what I've just described, if the candidate's expectations are way out of the ballpark, then you have an issue to deal with. If they're in alignment, there's that word again, then let's move forward. The first meeting with the candidate can be over the web given COVID and other issues that we're dealing with today, but I'd like you to make sure that you have some sort of face-to-face contact. I want you to make sure that they are on time for that, and we are going to administer what I refer to as a 100-day plan. The 100-day plan speaks to asking the candidate, and by the way, this is a good idea for every position in your company. After the first phone interview, have them tell you in writing what their plan would be, assuming they get the job, the plan for their first 100 days. Now, the worst of these that I've ever seen was a candidate said in his first 100 days, he wanted to get to know everybody. That's not acceptable, and that doesn't explain the way his or her brain thinks the best of these detailed week-by-week objectives that they want to achieve. Now, these may not be in alignment with your goals. That's okay, but what I'm looking for is, how does their brain work? Are they logical and follow some sort of methodology, or are they just random? I want to get to know everybody. We're also going to walk you through how to check references and, if possible, go out in the field with them. This is optional, and you're going to probably, as I go through the balance of this, say, "Wow, Gil, you're really giving us a lot of work, and given the challenges that we have in hiring people today, a lot of candidates may not tolerate this. So you're going to have to adjust what I'm advocating, and I'm deliberately overdosing or giving you more than you need in all situations. But I'd rather you have more strategies and tactics than not enough." We're going to present that transition plan. We're going to give them a performance plan in writing. Here's what I expect from you. Your first year, again, based on your local laws, we're going to administer a drug test, and we're going to talk about an offer letter, and then start the transition, which is a weekly review of that candidate to confirm that in the prior week, he or she gained some amount of proficiency in terms of dealing with your company, your product, your competitors. They must check in with you every week to help you understand that they've actually made that progress towards perfection, if you will. Now, when you look at the resume, make sure that you drill down on decision points. The decision points are those dates in the resume where a decision was made. So why did you choose to go to this school instead of that school? Why did you choose this major instead of that major when you went to that company? Why did you do that? And then why did you leave? You'll find one of two things tend to come out of that conversation. Men and women who are drifting through life who have no focus, no goal, will basically have a lot of random reasons for these decisions. What I'm looking for is someone who has had a focus on achieving something long-term, and they thought that each of these decisions would help them make that jump. Again, try to find out how they got paid. Was it pure commission or bonus plus salary or commission plus salary? And also look for alignment. If your comp plan is 60% salary and 40% commission, and they've been 90% salary and 10% commission, there may be a conflict there, so you need to work through that process on the phone. I need to know why they're on the market. The stealth candidate that I'm mentioning, there is a man or woman who we called into and we're recruiting out of a current situation. The people who respond to your job posting would be the people that you ask, "Why are you on the market?" Yeah, listen for reasons regarding that, and I've got on your screen a drug test. Now this is a little tongue-in-cheek, but it's helped me save clients a lot of money. I tell the candidates on the first phone interview that my client has a very firm drug testing policy. And if that's going to pose a problem for the client and the applicant at some point down the road, we need to know about it right now. And believe it or not, I've had people say, "Well, how long am I supposed to wait before I take the test?" Or, "What drugs do you test for?" So that gives me a good indication that we're about to make a hiring mistake and bring somebody on board who brings a soap opera to the company. That nickname came from my wife, who was a professional and human resource, and the people who have drug issues have a different issue every day. Car's broken down, dog has fleas, whatever it may be. So we want to point out that that won't be allowed as early in the process as possible. Don't allow any tardiness if they're late for your meetings. They're demonstrating the behavior that they're asking you to pay for. So stop and think about it. When they call and they say, "I'm 10 minutes late," that's what they're going to say to customers, because if you stop and think about it, the job interview is the most important sales call they'll ever make as long as they're associated with your company. And if they're willing to be late for that sales call, if they're willing to get lost on the way because they didn't do MapQuest the night before, that's the behavior you don't want to bring on board, because they're going to be representing you and your company. Hire people slowly. The rushing decisions that I see almost always don't pay off. Multiple meetings, multiple opportunities, and multiple interviews are the best ways to find out if you're bringing somebody on board that's going to do the job as opposed to tell you how the job should be done, and that's critical to avoid. Now, one of the vital steps in my process, and I'll talk about it in detail in part 2, is I insist on all applicants giving us a presentation. I'll ask them to come into my client's conference room after giving them a few days to prepare. I want them to sell us our product or service based on 10 days of preparation or in 10 hours or whatever of preparation to find the value propositions that we offer. If this candidate flops when they're in front of your decision-making team, they're going to flop in front of customers. A good salesperson should be able to glean enough value propositions from your website to give a decent, not a great, but at least a decent 5 to 7 minute overview of your company. If he or she can't do that, then I would probably look at them a little bit differently. Now, as you approach the hiring process, understand that we have different kinds of people based on their DNA, and I categorize them as hunters, caretakers, and blended. The hunters are the men and women who love to get the clothes they can be hard to manage. They sometimes don't dot I's or cross T's, but give them a territory that's giving you some headaches, and they'll bring some business back in. Almost all of the time, hunters are needed to grow your top line. Hunters are needed to bring strangers new accounts into your portfolio. They love to win, and their DNA is one of wanting to dominate the circumstances they find themselves in and influence the circumstances that they will come out of. The other type of person that you need to look for is a harvester or caretaker. Now these guys, unlike hunters dot I's and cross every T, nothing slips through the cracks. These are the guys that you want to take care of those big, important accounts. Those accounts that produce a ton of your profit that you can't afford to lose. But those accounts that hunters sometimes don't take care of because they'd rather be out exploring for the next new deal. And that costs you and them some money. So look for caretakers or harvesters to handle existing accounts and hunters to take care of finding those accounts in a good sales process, which we cover in another chapter. I want salespeople to sell, bring the business in, and a harvester or caretaker to take care of it. That handoff dramatically improves the efficiency of your entire team, and we'll cover that in another chapter. Now, there are two types of sales that you have to look for. And I'd like you to compare what I'm describing to your current situation. The demand creation cell is one where we go out to strangers and essentially say, "You don't know me, haven't heard of my company, but you need to give us some money soon," and I'm being facetious, but we're creating relationships. We're going in and solving problems and helping customers realize a permanent, measurable improvement in their business's operating conditions as a result of working with you. The other kind of sale is a demand fulfillment sale. This is where the customer knows what they want to buy, and they'll call in and say, "Tell me why I should buy this product from your company." Or they go to your website and say, "Contact me." So they're fulfilling a demand. The first one is a hunter, the second one's a harvester. So compare your product and your market to those situations. Now, another thing we need to look at is where in the customer life cycle is your company or your industry. If you're in the infancy and growth phase, you've got to hire hunters. These are the men and women who will take the beachhead. They don't have much fear of approaching strangers, and they'll close business may be hard to manage, but they will bring home the bacon, as we used to say, as your life cycle with your customers in your market peaks and starts to decline. That's where you need to start hiring harvesters or caretakers. Different DNA, different behavior, different beliefs, and by the way, different comp plans. Pure hunters prefer a low base salary and a high commission opportunity. Pure harvesters want a good, steady salary that allows them to stay just over broke, if you will, and that's a difference in DNA and personality. It's hard to tell the difference one from the other unless you interview them using the simulation style that we'll talk about in part 2. But you have to identify the innate style of that hunter or harvester, and you have to know what your market requires. If you hire a harvester and tell him or her to go hunt, they won't succeed. If you hire a hunter and tell them to go take care of big accounts, you could lose some big accounts. So make sure that you align, and I've heard that word throughout this presentation. If you don't take care of that alignment, you're going to be in trouble. Very much like the buying styles that I described a few moments ago. Your customers expect selling styles that are compatible to their way of doing business. And the same study that the Chaley Group performed shows us that these selling are innate and really can't be changed. So a stimulus response man or woman leads with the features. A consultative man or woman leads with the fact that they can solve business problems and produce a measurable, permanent improvement in one or more operating conditions of your business. Commodity salespeople negotiate based on price and availability. Relationship. Salespeople need to build long-term relationships, and they're great in those enterprise or harvesting situations. The retail salesperson doesn't necessarily stand behind the counter. What they do is they're very passive and they wait for the customer to come on board. Now in your toolkit, you'll find a 90-day roadmap for a new salesperson. I also refer to that as the transition plan. As you'll see week by week for the first 90 days, I'm spelling out proficiency objectives. It's critical that you benchmark proficiency and don't worry about revenue for those first 90 days. For instance, I want to know they can give a great presentation about my company. I want to know they can give a great presentation about all of our products and that they are articulate in describing the advantages or weaknesses of our competitors. I want to know without doubt that they understand how to process orders, how our operations work, what our terms and conditions are. I've been amazed over the years at the number of companies that hire great salespeople, and they neglect to share that information with that new salesperson. So they're pretty much out there on their own, and that causes them to get frustrated and fail. So in summary, I hope you got the message from part 1 that we are really going to go after alignment. You have to align your company with the marketplace and then hire people who match that alignment. So I'd like you to type into the platform 3 things that you're going to continue to do, 3 things that you're going to stop doing, and 3 things that you'll start doing. As always, I wish you good luck and good selling. This is Gil Cargill. Have a great day and get out there and sell somebody something.